Hi, and welcome to Terry Talks Movies. This time around, I've got something a bit different. But before I do that, is there anything quite as naughty as having an espresso at 7 o'clock at night? Yeah, there is, but I'm not going to tell you what. So this time around, I had a thought, and I do have many of them, surprisingly. And my thought was this. What was I watching 10 years ago? What movies was I consuming 10 years ago? Or what movies were I consuming 10 years ago if my syntax was correct? But I got a way of finding this out because fortunately, I have been using Letterboxd for 10 years. Now, I don't use it to post reviews because if somebody wants me to review a movie, they're going to pay me. I'm not going to do it for free. I use Letterboxd purely as a way of marking the movies I've seen, and I've done it since 2014. As I record this, it is mid-2025, so I've been doing it for 11 years. And occasionally when I'm trying to work out what movies to do for the channel, I'll dive back into the letterbox and just see the movies that I've kind of forgotten and I haven't spoken about on the channel. But the ones that I'd really like to and the ones that I think people would enjoy, and I want to steer them towards all the usual things we do on this channel. And so I went into my Letterboxd and took a look at the movies I have watched in 2015. And the subtitle here is My Annual List of Ways That I've Wasted My Life this year, or my time this year. So I'm just going to go into my computer now and just bring up the letterbox and just see what we've got. Fortunately, I've got a graphics card that lets me do this, so it's all hunky-dory. So let's have a look. There it is, my annual list of ways I've wasted my time this year, 2015. So I'm going to go through them and just see whether there's anything I want to talk about further on the channel and just let you know where my head was at in 2015. As you can see, I started out the year on a banger, Dumb and Dumber 2. The very bad sequel to Dumb and Dumber I saw. I didn't rate it because, again, I'm not reviewing things on here. But Jim Carrey, Jeff Daniels, Laurie Holden, Rob Riggle was in there as well, Paul Blackthorne, a whole bunch of people. I remember it being even more stupid than the first one. But that's the first thing I watched in a year. And then we went to Carry On Cruising because occasionally I dive into Carry On movies because I did watch them when I was a kid. Occasionally when I went to Saturday matinees at the Regent Cinema in Liverpool, they would throw a Carry On movie in there, even though it was a bit naughty for kids. So 1962, Carry On Cruising, it's got all the usual people in there. I think I might want to rewatch that at some stage. I just finished watching a Carry On movie about a week ago, and I enjoyed it, so I'm going to go back in that. This one, Deathline, also known as Raw Meat, is a fantastic film about a cannibal living in a tunnel underneath the tube stations in London. Really interesting film. I've talked about it on the channel, I think, briefly in a list of horror movies to watch. But that one's great, and it's got Donald Pleasence playing a copper. And for this small movie, Donald Pleasence creates a whole character, someone different, somebody you'd like to see in a series on television. And he just does that because that's the job, is to create a character. And Donald Pleasence does a fantastic job in Deathline, also known as Raw Meat. This one I know I've spoken of on the channel. The Lair of the White Worm. Amanda Donohoe, Hugh Grant, Catherine Oxenberg, Peter Capaldi, Stratford Johns. Just a mad film. Based on a novel by Bram Stoker. Just a crazy film about a vampire snake lady played by Amanda Donohoe. That one is such fun. And it's one of those comfort films. And then we went to Crank. I'll actually talk about them in the order that they're came out. Crank with the Statham, Neville Dean Taylor, director Brian Taylor and Mark Neville Dean. If you haven't seen Crank, you got to see this movie. You got to see its sequel as well, Crank High Voltage. Fantastic concept. Chev Chelios, who's a gangster, gets drug put into him, which means he will die if his heart rate goes below a certain level. So he's got to keep the adrenaline going and keep it pumping. Second one's even madder. Fantastic. It references so much pop culture, the two Crank movies. I'd like to see a third one. I'm not sure we can because Statham is significantly older now, but the Crank movies were just such wonderful fun to watch. And then there's this one, which is a hidden gem, 23 Paces to Baker Street, with the wonderful Van Johnson, Vera Miles, Cecil Parker, Patricia Laffin from Devil Girl from Mars is in there. About a blind playwright who hears a conversation about a murder being committed, and he needs to talk to the police about it, and he can't see, of course, who was talking about it. It was in a pub, so he can't see who was talking about it. But he basically goes and tries to find out who's being killed. Nice little thriller from the 1950s. I know it's on Tubi, so at least in Australian Tubi, you can check it out. There we go. We've got the two Blade movies, the first two with Wesley Snipes. I didn't bother with the third one because that one's a dog's breakfast. But the first two work well. I wouldn't mind seeing Blade come into the MCU again. I know there was definitely a possibility of doing it with Mahershala Ali playing the character. But that one's been in development hell for the best part of a decade now. Probably till from 2015. But it's just not happened. I think they've got problems with the script and also jigsawing it into the MCU timeline is a bit of a problem for them. They're good to rewatch. I've got them on DVD. I don't necessarily need to upgrade them to Blu-ray or 4K or anything like that. Definitely worth a rewatch. And then I watched Strange Brew, which is a good comedy. If you're a Canadian, I suppose it's funnier than it is for us. Something is rotten at the Elsinore Brewery. Bob and Doug McKenzie, played by Dave Thomas and Rick Moranis, help out to get the brewery going and save the beer. It's also got Max von Sydow in it, Paul Dooley. Getting Max von Sydow into a movie like this, Max von Sydow has done some crazy projects. He also did voice work on Skyrim, the computer game. And you go into Skyrim and you meet a couple of characters, and they're voiced by Max von Sydow and Christopher Plummer. So there's that going on. But Strange Brew is a bit of fun. This one's a hidden gem you should check out. New Faces 1954, which was a review on Broadway. And it was one of the first things Mel Brooks ever wrote for. And it's got a fantastic cast. Paul Lynde, Alice Gosley, Eartha Kitt, Carol Lawrence. It's basically a filmed Robert Clary from Hogan's Heroes is in there. It's basically a film version of the stage production. Social commentary is in there as well. There really is a deep cut thing. I know it's had a DVD release because I've got a DVD. And I think, again, it may well be on Tubi because New Faces, which was known as New Faces of 1954, I've got the soundtrack album for it as well. Just an incredible cast. Some of the stuff's dated and you're going to have to do a Google search to understand what people are saying. But I like the fact that it's on physical media. Then we've got the one I love, which is a very interesting Momocall movie, which stars Mark Duplass and Elizabeth Moss. Ethan and Sophie, a married couple on the brink of separation when at the urging of their therapist, they decide to salvage their relationship on a beautiful vacation house for the weekend. It's science fiction in a sense, alternate universe science fiction probably, but it's very interesting and a lot of the dialogue's improvised, but it really is a nice film if you're interested in low budget movies that have an idea behind them. Really cool little film. This one's a bad one. Assassination in Rome, starring Hugh O'Brien, Sid Charisse. Basically, it's a Euro spy movie that's not very good. The dialogue isn't great, but I got it in a double box set with another movie that I watched. I forget what the movie is, but I knew I wanted it. And Assassination in Rome was a part of that. So I watched it and I went, Hammer's the four-sided triangle about a matter duplication machine where a woman who's part of a love triangle is duplicated by one of the men in the love triangle. And the duplicate, played by Barbara Payton, falls in love with the same guy as her original person. So that one's kind of interesting. Mixing science fiction with a really messed up romance. The Four-Sided Triangle is worth checking out. I don't know that I've done it for the channel, but I know I did it back when I was podcasting. So it might be one I can put into a future video. Shaft in Africa, the third Shaft movie, which cops a lot of shit. But I kind of like it. Directed by John Gilman. Frank Finlay's in there. Vanetta McGee. Always there for a Vanetta McGee role. Really interesting film where Shaft goes undercover in Africa to bust up human trafficking. And it works. It's a little more James Bondy than the other Shaft movies. But I don't mind that particularly. And it's got a banger of a soundtrack. People talk about the soundtrack to the original Shaft, and rightly so. But Shaft in Africa, I think, is underrated among the three after Shaft's big score. This one you got to check out. Let's see, X the Unknown, which was a kind of sort of wannabe Quatermass movie, where in England they find a fissure that's got a radioactive something in it. And the English government and a scientist played by Dean Jagger have to figure it out. So there's your cast. Dean Jagger, Leah McKern, William Lucas, Anthony Newley's in there, Kenneth Cope, a lot of familiar faces and names in there. It's a kind of wannabe Quatermass, but I think it's an honest science fiction movie for 1956. And again, it's one of those ones I'm kind of leaning toward rewatching. Haven't done it on the channel. Maybe I should. And then let's have a look. I did watch this other one, Blade Trinity. I watched that. It's a shitty movie. Wesley Snipes had a bit of shit on his liver at the time, and his stubble ended up doing a lot of the scenes for him. Ryan Reynolds has talked about how bad it was to make Blade Trinity and how Wesley Snipes basically pooed the bed on that. But I watched it apparently. And then From Here to Eternity, fantastic stuff. Sinatra at his best. You've got Deborah Kerr, you've got Burt Lancaster, you've got Montgomery Clift, Mickey Shaughnessy, Ernest Borgnine playing Fatsa Judson. Fantastic. Really weird too, because Donna Reed got an Academy Award for playing Best Supporting Actress, and she wasn't that good. Really fine film. George Reeves is in there as well, in case you didn't notice. He's definitely in there. But at the time he was playing Superman, and everybody wondered why Superman was in From Here to Eternity, but he was. This one I love. Smiles on a Summer Night, Ingmar Bergman comedy. It's the one they based the Stephen Sondheim musical, Little Night music on, about a lawyer, Egerman, who's got a young wife he hasn't slept with yet because she's not quite ready to take a sausage. And his old flame Desiree, who's an actress, turns up in town at the local theatre, and they renew their acquaintance. And the couples, Desiree and another guy and a friend of his wife's and his wife, and everybody goes away for the weekend on the longest night of the year, the one night of the year in that part of Sweden where the sun doesn't set. And it's kind of like a French fast romantic thing. It's wise, it's funny. It's if you haven't seen Smiles of a Summer Night, you should check it out because it's very accessible and a very lovely movie. Then I saw The Purge Anarchy because I was watching the Purge movies at the time. I think the Purge movies exist so that America can justify the fact that most people have a gun. It's one of those wish fulfillment horror film dystopias that doesn't sit particularly well with me. I'll watch them, but I'm not particularly in love with those movies. Then I did watch Shaft's biggest score. Richard Roundtree, Mogis' gun, Drew Bundini Brown, Julius Harris is in there as well, Joe Santos. Nice follow-up to Shaft. And, I mean, the Shaft and the Slaughter movies with Jim Brown, were my jam at the time. I really loved them. And I still do, understanding that they are the kind of movies that they are. Again, a great soundtrack, directed by Gordon Parks, who is just a director I'm going to deep dive into more after having watched Leadbelly the other day. Let's see what else I watched. James Batman, which is a Filipino Batman movie. I tried to refine this one. I don't know where I got a copy of it from, but I've tried to refine it. But it's a mad little Filipino comedy with a guy being Batman. And it's not in any way authorized by DC, but it's just crazy. I only ever found a very bad copy of it. Then there's this movie, which is a French adventure film starring Topher Sisley, called Lago Winch, the Heir Apparent. It's based on a graphic novel, a European graphic novel, and it's kind of cool. Big adventure film with an international set of locations. I think, Kristen Scott Thomas is in it as well. Looks fantastic. The action scenes are crisp. Lago Winch movies, and there are, at this stage, 3 of them, are definitely worth checking out. Safety Not Guaranteed is the other Mark Duplass mumblecore movie, which also has Aubrey Plaza in it. And as you can see here, there's an ad that says, "Wanted somebody to go back in time with me. This is not a joke. You'll get paid after we get back. Must bring your own weapons. I have only done this once before. Safety Not Guaranteed." And Mark Duplass is playing the guy who's hiring it. Aubrey Plaza and Jake Johnson and Karen Sonny are some journalists who go to investigate this weird little newspaper ad. And they find out that the guy actually has a time machine. Really fine little mumblecore movie. I think it may be one of the best mumblecore movies for me. And I really enjoy it. Then we got Chatterbox, which is 1970s exploitation film. Starring Candice Ralston. It's got Rip Taylor in it as well. Lee Martell. A whole bunch of people. It's actually based on a hard X French film. And it's the story of a young woman whose lady parts learn how to talk with a mind of their own. And I like it. It's a vulgar pleasure. I will admit it is a deeply vulgar pleasure. But I really like Chatterbox. And I will watch it again and again. I've got it on DVD. It's in a box set of about 4 different movies that were bundled together back in the early part of the 21st century and sold on. But Chatterbox, if you're in the mood for that kind of film, it's definitely one you could watch. What we got next? To the Devil a Daughter. Talked about it on the channel. I've seen it. One of the very last Hammer films, starring Richard Widmark, Christopher Lee, Nastasia Kinski, Honor Blackman, Denholm Elliott, Anthony Valentine, a whole bunch of people. And it does have an unclad Nastasia Kinski when she was underage, which makes it a bit on the nose. But if you're a Hammer completist, you're going to watch To the Devil a Daughter. But for me, that bit at the end does not sit well for fairly obvious reasons. I may have to split this video up into 2 parts. Not Quite Hollywood, the exploitation documentary, Mark Hartley's movie. Fantastic one, the definitive movie about Ozploitation. You can't go past this one. There's so many deep cut interviews with people. Philip Adams, Gloria Ann, Christina Moore, Steve Bisley, Jamie Blake, Graham Blundell, everybody who's anybody in the Ozploitation world was interviewed for Mark Hartley's documentary. This is the Bible of Ozploitation, and it's rewatchable as hell. And the madness of the creation of a lot of these movies and the lack of safety procedures amongst anything else make it a really interesting documentary, and it should be in your collection. I know Umbrella put it out years ago. I don't know whether it's easily accessible now, but it may well be on Broly if you're here in Australia, which is Umbrella's streaming service. And it's a definite recommend. And it's one of those movies where you're going to sit down with a pen and paper and just write down the names of the movies so you can track them down and watch them. Let's have a look. The Birds, we all know that. Hitchcock, Tippi Hedren, Rod Taylor, Jessica Tandy, Susan Plachette. Birds Go Mad in Bodega Bay. You know that one. It's now and then I dive into these classic Hitchcock films. Haven't done it lately. Maybe if Imprint send me a lot of their Hitchcock movies that are coming out soon, I can dive into more Hitchcock films. The Time Machine, fantastic. Again, another Rod Taylor movie. George Powell directed it and produced it. Fantastic film with a lot of heart too. The bromance between Rod Taylor and Alan Young's characters is fantastic. It's gentle, it's caring. It's probably one of the best male-to-male relationships in science fiction. And this one's a classic. I liked it when I was a kid. I still love it. The 2004 remake with Guy Pearce, I'm not in love with like this one. But The Time Machine is just such a classic and such a movie to be treasured that I really love it. And then we got an Australian science fiction movie, Predestination, which is fantastic, directed by the Sperry brothers. This is the movie that brought Sarah Snook to everyone's attention. It also stars Ethan Hawke, Noah Taylor, based on a Heinlein short story, All You Zombies. If you haven't seen Predestination, you should see it. I've got the Blu-ray, and I don't know whether it's getting a 4K release soon. It may well be. It may be that or Daybreakers, one of those two. Umbrella is giving the oomph to. But Predestination is a fantastic film, very much set in an alternate universe where time travel exists. You got to check that one out if you haven't. Well, we got these final hours. I've talked about this one on the channel. Science fiction movie about the end of the world, set in Perth, Western Australia, directed by Zach Hilditch, about a man who, it's the last day of the world. The world's got hit by a very large asteroid on the other side of the planet. And the last place to get hit by the firestorm is Perth. James heads out to a party, but then he finds a young girl he rescues from kidnappers who are going to be monstrous to her because there's no consequences at the end of the world. And he has to decide whether he wants to go and spend the last moments of human existence with his girlfriend or help this young girl, played by Angourie Rice, to find her family, find her mum. It's an incredibly heartwarming movie for this kind of no way out apocalyptic film. These Final Hours is a fantastic little film, and the fact that it does have that heart makes it even better. Expendables 3, remember nothing about it because it's an Expendables movie. You're not supposed to hold it close to your heart. Let's see who's in this one. Stallone, Statham, Harrison Ford, Arnie, Mel Gibson, Wesley Snipes, Dolph Lundgren. Every actor who ever took anabolic steroids is in this movie. Yeah, it's the Expendables. The Infinite Man, a little small budget Australian movie. Well, who's the director? Hugh Sullivan. About a guy who constructs a time machine and on a romantic weekend tries to unmess up his relationship with his girlfriend by creating time loops. It's cute. It's very well scripted, very well written. Yeah, this one you should check out if you get a chance to. I'm sure it's on a streaming service somewhere and you'll be able to find it. Then we got Rush, the Brum Brum racing car movie, directed by Ron Howard, which means it's going to be mid at best. Chris Hemsworth, Daniel Bruhl, James Hunt, and Niki Lauda are the two racing car drivers. It is what it is. It's not memorable or great. Hemsworth and Daniel Bruhl are okay in it, but yeah, it's one of those things. Eureka Stockade, based on the true events that happened in the 1850s up at Ballarat down the road. Chip Rafferty, Peter Finch, Gordon Jackson, Grant Taylor, directed by Harry Watts. It was actually an English film that was made here in Australia to tell Australian stories and take them back to the mother country. Really nicely done. I've been up to Sovereign Hill around where the Eureka Stockade actually happened, and I've read Raphael Carbone's book about it, and he was actually at the stockade. Really interesting part of Australian history. And 1949, it's well told. Even though it was filmed about 1,000 kilometres north of Ballarat, it still holds up well as a movie about part of Australia's history. But so Captain America the Winter Soldier came out, so I saw that. We all know that. Not going to go into it anymore. Bit of a male gaze on Scarlett Johansson there, isn't there? Look at that. Yeah, that's definitely designed to be a thirst trap. We all know that film, so I saw that when it came out. Newsfront, my favourite Australian film, 1978, directed by Phil Noyce. Two brothers working as youth cameramen for rival companies in 1950s Australia find their life dramatically affected by the constant changing times in which they live. Fantastic film. Bill Hunter is fantastic playing the protagonist. Wendy Hughes, Gerard Kennedy, Chris Haywood. We've also got a very early role by Brian Brown. Just a fantastic film about the best aspects of being a man and the best aspects of white male personalities. Just love this film. What's this one? Fat Pizza versus Howos. Paulie Fenwick's movie. Very broad kind of urban comedy. He had two franchises, Fat Pizza, which was his half-hour comedy series about a pizza place, and Howos is about unemployed people living in housing commission housing in the western parts of Sydney. Very broad comedies, though. Fat Pizza and Howos movies. They've kind of fallen off the cultural bandwagon now because they weren't at all kind to various people. Now I'm not inclined to rewatch them, though I did enjoy them at the time. Charade, of course, the movie that fell into public domain, which of course stars Audrey Hepburn and Cary Grant. Regina Lampert falls in love with Peter Joshua. Her husband's been killed. There are a whole bunch of spies. You've got Walter Matthau in there. It was remade very badly with Marky Mark and Taylor Newton. The remake is monstrously bad. It was just one of those things where save your money and invest it in bonds. Don't put it into this movie. The remake shit. This one's charming and lovely. Birdman, of course, with Michael Keaton. Yeah, that was a real headspin of a movie. Not inclined to rewatch it particularly, but I admire the fact that it did what it did. And, you got the fading actor, you've got the superhero he played, you've got magic realism all over the place on Broadway even. And Michael Keaton running around a movie theater in his underpants. Bit of fun, but it's kind of faded from people's attention. Then I did Jackie Brown. I just love Jackie Brown. Probably the best Tarantino movie from some points of view, based on the Elmore Leonard novel. Pam Grier's fantastic in it. Robert Forster is great. You got De Niro, Samuel L. Jackson. I just like what it does, and it's stylish as hell. And I think it's a road not traveled by Tarantino, following up on Jackie Brown with grounded projects. Would have been an interesting diversion from Tarantino's career. La Femme Nikita, the original version, not the TV series. Anne Pariot, directed by, I think it's Luc Besson, if I'm not wrong. It is. About a beautiful criminal who murders a policeman and is given a second chance to get his shit together to be a political assassin. Very gritty movie. There was a remake with Bridget Fonda. There was a TV series as well. But going back to the OG is always an interesting thing with these kind of franchises. And La Femme Nikita, which is a brutal movie in some ways, just works as a 1990s action film that people just simply don't talk about very much. The Bride Wore Black, Francois Truffaut, based on a Cornell Woolrich novel. Jean Moreau's a little old for the character, about a bride whose husband is killed on their wedding day, and she tracks down and kills 5 men who were responsible for it. It ends on a very funny note. Really interesting Truffaut movie. And even though Jean Moreau is older than the character, she kind of brings it, makes it work. Michael Lonsdale's in there, Jean-Claude Brialy, Alexandra Stewart's in there as well. But I've got The Bride Wore Black on DVD, and for me, it's one of my favorite Truffaut movies. Really enjoy it. And I like the dark comedy of it. John Wick came out, so I saw John Wick, the first one. Sally won't watch this movie because they kill the dog, but Michael Nyqvist is the bad guy in the Alfie Allen as well, Willem Dafoe. Chad Stahelski's first real hit. And someday I've got to rewatch all of the John Wick movies just for the pew punch of them, and to get back into that world without going to see Ballerina. Animated Justice League's Throne of Atlantis, about Arthur Curry, also known as Aquaman. This isn't a bad little animated DC movie. I think it works well, gives us different spins on a lot of the characters. Just a lot of fun to watch. And I have a lot of time for animated DC films. I think they do very, very well on their budgets. Special Forces, I don't remember this one. It's a French one. I think Eugene Monhunso's in it, Diane Kruger. I remember nothing about this one. I know I've seen it because it's on the list, but I remember nothing about it. Four Lions I saw, which directed by Chris Morris. Group of British jihadists who push their abstract dreams of glory to the breaking point. This is a bold movie where a bunch of jihadists in England try to do things and basically fuck it up. Yeah, this one's very on the edge, and it's not going to be for everybody because a lot of people are going to get pretty miffed with this film. But Four Lions was a bold little film of its time. Eureka, which is a documentary about, surprisingly enough, European crime movies of the 70s, directed by Mike Malloy. The Eureka movies are fantastic. There's a lot of actors in there talking about the films. There's definitely a deep rabbit hole you can go down with these films. But the stunt work alone, the Italian cop and gangster films that ruled the 1970s, that one is fantastic. I've got a copy of this on DVD. Again, it's a genre rabbit hole that you're going to dive down if you're so inclined. But just go for it. Then I watched Blackula. William Marshall saves this movie from being piss poor and ordinary, really. Playing Momowalde, African prince who is turned into a vampire and imprisoned by Dracula. And he meets a woman called Tina, who he believes is a reincarnation of his dead wife, played by Vanetta McGee. Yeah, the first one's better than the second one, directed by William Crane, a man of colour. But the Blackula movies are just the best horror blaxploitation movies there were. Then I dived into Count Yorga Vampire with Robert Quarry. This feels a lot like a TV movie in some ways. It's got a lot of TV actors in it. Roger Perry, Michael Murphy. About Count Yorga. Robert Quarry was just such a campy actor in a lot of ways. The second one is no better, but again, it's a 1970s drive-in movie, so you've got to take it at the level it is. And then I watched The Return of Count Yorga because I did. Second one, have a look at that face. That's a face only a dentist could love. Again, Robert Quarry, Mariette Hartley's in there, Roger Perry, a lot of TV actors. George McCready's in there. That's interesting. Then there's this thing called The Swiss Conspiracy from 1976 with David Jensen, directed by Jack Arnold. This one was in the public domain, so it turned up in a lot of $5 DVD bins in cheap shops at the time. So I picked up a copy of it and watched it. And Centerberger's in there. Filmed in Europe. It looks good because it's filmed in Europe. But again, it's a kind of forgettable action film. Let's have a look here. What we got there? We have All About Eve. How can you not love that? Joseph Mankiewicz, just Anne Baxter, Betty Davis, George Sanders, Celeste Holm, Hugh Muller, Thelma Ritter's in there as well, Gary Merrill. All About Eve is just such a bitchy, wonderful film that I love it a lot, and I really enjoy the sheer bitchiness of it. And of course, it's got Marilyn Monroe in a small role. Revenge of the Nerds. I watched this one because we're going to talk about it, and we actually did talk about it on ABC local radio in the Northern Territory. And we worked out that all of the so-called heroes in Revenge of the Nerds were sex criminals and nasty pieces of work and real pricks. And that shocked us, but then turned the conversation around to movies that have aged like fine milk. Revenge of the Nerds really pissed us off. Then I watched all that jazz because it's Fosse. It's Roy Schneider, Fosse, Jessica Lange's in there, Anne Reinking, Leland Palmer. I just love this movie. Fantastic banger soundtrack. Bob Fosse basically doing his own autopsy. Marvelous movie. Love it a lot. Fantastic. Let's have a look there. 8.5. Then I watched Fellini's 8.5 with the wonderful Marcello Mastroianni. This is my second favorite Fellini film after the wonderful La Dolce Vita. Anouk Aimie's in there, Sandra Milo, Rosella Falk, Claudia Cardinale, Barbara Steele. About Guido Anselmi, a film director. I'm going to have to rewatch 8.5. I actually have looked at it on the shelf the other week. and thought, I've got to rewatch that when I get time to watch a long Fellini movie. So they got that. Tunnel Vision, directed by Neil Israel, Phil Proctor, Howard Hesseman. Committee investigating TV's first uncensored network examines a typical day's programming. Very broad 1970s comedy. Don't remember all the details about it, but it's got a killer cast. John Candy's in there, Chevy Chase, Ernie Anderson, Garrett Graham's in there, Betty Thomas, Joe Flaherty. I'm going to have to rewatch Tunnel Vision. I'm going to write that down in a minute. I'm going to rewatch Tunnel Vision. This one's interesting too. My name is Modesty, a movie that was directed by Scott Spiegel, which was the movie that was made cheaply so the Quentin Tarantino's company could keep the intellectual property rights to the Modesty Blaze novels of Peter O'Donnell. Alexandra Staden plays Modesty Blaze. This is before she met Willie Garvin and she was running a casino in Tangier. And somebody comes in to rob her casino. I don't mind it as a film. I think the actress is a little under-muscled to play the character, but it kind of works and is a rarity. I actually had a dodgy copy of this, and then I got myself a decent copy of it. If you can find this one anywhere, you might find it interesting if you're a fan of Peter O'Donnell's novels. May well piss you off. Then Dreamscape with Dennis Quaid and Kate Capshaw, about psychics, basically. Max von Sydow's in there. Christopher Plummer playing a nice villain. David Patrick Kelly in his second best villain role after The Warriors. Special effects are very 1984. Eddie Albert's in there as well. Dreamscape's not a bad rewatch if you get a chance to. It's a nice, honest 1980s science fiction horror thriller. This Island Earth, don't need to talk about that. Talked about it enough on this channel. That good old Metaluna mutant with his scrotum head. Yeah, I watched that at the time. The first science fiction movie I ever saw in the cinema. I think I'm going to go up to about the 65 and then I'll end this video. I may do this. I'll do this as a series. How's that? I'll go through the movies I watched 10 years ago. And every Wednesday for the next few weeks, we'll go through the movies I watched. This one you got to find on YouTube. I promise you, you're going to enjoy it if you're a film buff. The Criclewood Grace, written and directed by Peter Capaldi. Basically talking about an imaginary film studio called Criclewood. And the whole movie is pastiches of early 20th century, mid 20th century English movies. There are just some fantastic jokes in it. I don't think it's the greatest film. It's not particularly long. It's about 60 minutes. But the Criclewood Grace is funny, and I like it. And it definitely takes a piss out of Hammer horror films and Ealing comedies and 1930s working class comedies, the George Formby kind of things, and the Gracie Fields movies. I really like it. And Peter Capaldi plays himself, interviewing people about Cricklewood Studios. Nice little film. Pendulum, which was actually put into the George Peppard box set that Imprint did about a year and a half ago. Really interesting film about a policeman whose wife is murdered and he becomes a suspect, even though he's a hard-ass, hardcore guy. And if you look at Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, Margot Robbie playing Sharon Tate walks past a cinema marquee showing Pendulum. Good cast: George Peppard, Gene Seberg, Richard Kiley, Charles McGraw, Robert F. Lyons playing the killer. This one's a definite hidden gem of a film. I actually bought it on Blu-ray before I got the box set. Weird little theme song too. Then I saw Interstellar because I saw Interstellar. Not my favorite Christopher Nolan movie. I'm not that fond of any movie that's mostly about daddy issues. I think the science is great. The science fictional aspects of it are great. But the daddy issues kind of put me off this film. Documentary about Jackie Mums Maby, one of the first great female stand-up comics. One of the first female stand-up comics who was gay as well. Directed by Whoopi Goldberg. Whoopi Goldberg presents Mums Maby. That's a good documentary about a person who's kind of forgotten in the history of comedy to a certain extent. And Jackie Maby was just so funny and so on point, and so much to love about that documentary. And then I watched Real Genius with Val Kilmer, young skinny Val, directed by Martha Coolidge. This was the movie that I watched for the ABC radio gig I was doing, where we wanted to find a college comedy of the 1980s that wasn't sexist like the Revenge of the Nerds were. So we watched Real Genius, and there was a lot of good stuff to say about Real Genius and the wonderfulness of it, and filling a house full of popcorn and then using an orbital laser to set off the popcorn. Just a really nice little film with a good heart, and Martha Coolidge did a fantastic job of it. Good supporting cast in there as well. Michelle Mayerink and William Atherton and John Grease. And Real Genius, if you haven't watched it lately, a lot of fun. I think it's Val Kilmer's second major film role, and it just works. So I'm going to leave it there for this one because the video is running a bit long. But that's the stuff I was watching 10 years ago, and it's nice to revisit it and just kind of go through it and go, yeah, there's some cool stuff there that I may well want to revisit. There's nothing really, there are no deep films in there, unless you count Smiles on a Summer Night and maybe 8.5. But it's good going through that. And I've got a whole bunch more, so there are going to be some long videos ahead. Let me know if you like this format as well, because it gives you a long list of movies to check out if you haven't, which is partly what people appreciate about the channel. And for me, it gives me the movies I want to rewatch. So thank you very, very much for watching. If you enjoyed the video, please like, subscribe, hit the notification bell. You can also support the channel by becoming a channel member on YouTube or by becoming a patron at patreon.com/TerryTalksMovies. Next up, we've got Science Fiction Saturday, and I've got some nice plans for that. So until that happens, watch some good movies, watch some bad movies, watch some old movies and revisit the things you saw a decade ago and see whether your taste has improved at all. And I'll catch you next time.
The night is a shadow, smooth and deep. The city hums low, its secrets keep.